Gabrielle, look at this. I got my candle lit. I got my foam deer loafers on. Do you know what that means?
Go time.
I call it business time, but
Business time.
it's fine. You can say go time if you want. Young people and their newfangled language. In this video, Gabrielle and I are gonna show you 3 common misconceptions when it comes to flash.
My name is Pi, and I'm one of the founders of Lynn and Jersa Photography and SLRLounge.com. We're teaming up with Adorama to bring you a new series of photography tutorials called Master Your Craft right here on Adorama TV. So let's dive in.
Flash misconception number 1 is the inverse square law. We spend so much time trying to figure out what the heck this thing means. It sounds complicated. It sounds complex, right? It sounds mathematical. We don't like math. I'm gonna bust out my handy dandy drawing board because I'm gonna break this rule down into one simple thing. The inverse square law, all it means is that the further your flash gets from your subject, the less light you're gonna get on your subject. That makes sense, right?
Yes.
Okay. The only reason we really need a law for this is because we're gonna lose more light than we actually think we're losing. If you move a flash, I'm gonna put 2x, it's twice the distance. Intuitively, we'd think we're gonna get half the power, right? Like you move it twice the distance, you're gonna get half the power.
Yes.
In reality, we're actually getting far less. And that's what's great about the inverse square law. Really, all it means is the further you move the light, you're just gonna get less light than you actually think. And how much? It's the square of the distance. For example, if we move the light twice as far away, we're gonna get 1/4 the power back. So it's not half, it's this squared. All we're really saying with the inverse square law is when you move the flash at a certain distance, this beam is widening out. So when you place your subject at twice closer, like if you bring them 2 times closer, right? So now you're getting a more concentrated section of that beam. When they're standing twice as far away, they're getting less of that light landing on them. So not only do we get less power, but the beam is widening out. That's the issue that we're running into. Now I have one last note when it comes to the inverse square law, and that's certain modifiers can actually change the way that our lights are working. So normally our flash fires out like this beam, right? But certain modifiers, like say for example, a Fresnel lens or the Fresnel lens inside of a MagMod mag beam. What those do is they concentrate the light. So instead of getting this wide kind of disbursement of light, it's actually focusing the light on a beam. Now those types of lights, they're gonna operate a little bit differently. So when you move them at distance, you can still get quite a bit of power. So that's just the one thing to remember there. When you place a Fresnel lens or a focusing lens onto a flash, you can move it back and you can still get a concentrated amount of light right onto your subject. Misconception number 2. I know these things sound similar, but soft light versus diffused light, those are 2 separate things. A soft light. Gabrielle, soft refers to the size of a light source. When a light source is really large, that means you're gonna get a very soft kind of graduation from the highlight to the shadow of the face. When a light source is very small, we say that it's hard, meaning that the shadow transition, it looks like direct sunlight. You know how you have like one side lit and the other side just goes dark. On the other hand, when we're talking about diffused, the opposite of that would be specular. So when I place a diffused light source on you, that's a light source that's going through some sort of fabric, and it's gonna reflect less light back into the lens. It means that we're gonna get less of those kind of, highlights on the face. Like sometimes they look like sweat, sometimes it looks like whatever dewiness. We're gonna get less of that. When we use silver modifiers, we're getting more reflection going back into the camera. We're getting more of that stuff. So that means that we can do these interesting combinations. Like you can have a light source that's not only hard, it's small, but it's also diffused. And a perfect example of that would be grabbing a flash and then placing, like say, a mag sphere over that, something small that diffuses it. It's gonna give us a slightly more diffused look, but it still has a hard shadow transition. Similarly, we can have large softboxes that give us a very specular light by simply leaving off the diffusion panels. So we have that internal silver, just that inside, pushing all the light forward, and we get a nice strong specular light, but it's large and kind of soft in nature. So now we're talking about flash duration. Now, Gabrielle, would you mind pointing this into the Carlo and pushing that white button? Thank you. Carlo, you blind?
No,
Sufficient.
thank God.
Okay. Gabrielle, when that flash fired, it looked instantaneous, did it not? In reality, if we were to slow this down, what's actually happening is the flash tube is powering up and it's dumping all of that power at one point in time. So it's kind of like a power up, it dumps it all, and then you can almost tell, do you see it kind of fading back? You can kind of see that, right? Where it kind of like, it pops and it fades back. We call this flash duration. Now, what it essentially means for our photographers at home is just that you can freeze your subjects. Let's say that you have no ambient light. We can use flash to freeze our subjects, so long as the flash duration is quick enough. The easiest thing to remember here, flash duration changes depending on the make and the model of your flash. So generally speaking, a nicer flash is gonna have a better flash duration, more color consistency, better output, that kind of stuff. Whereas a less expensive flash unit might have a little bit worse flash duration and color consistency and whatnot. But we can control flash duration as well by simply lowering the power of that flash. So at full power, you're gonna have the slowest flash duration. And that means we're gonna take a shot of you kind of doing a little action. When you do that and we fire this at full power, we're gonna see a little bit of motion captured. When we actually lower the power setting and instead increase our ISO, then we're gonna actually be able to freeze you completely because we're turning out all the ambient light. So what's important that you guys remember at home is that usually manufacturers are gonna give you a T5 and a T1 time. All this simply means is the T5 time is the time it takes for 50% of the flash power to dissipate. Ignore that number because that's not the freezing potential of a flash unit. Look instead at the T1 time. The T1 time is the amount of time it takes for 90% of the flash power to dissipate. And that's what we need because any of that dissipation is gonna cast onto our subject. So the faster that T1 time, the better the flash's ability to freeze your subjects. And remember that T1 time will change for every different power setting. So when you're looking at buying new flashes, take a look at the T1 time across the different power ranges and compare it across the board. That's it for our 3 flash misconceptions. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like. You guys can comment below and let us know what you want to see next. And if you guys would like to follow Gabrielle, I don't know why she's been making fun of me this whole time. She's not nice. I'm just kidding. She's super sweet. You can find her at Gabrielle Capri with 2 eyes on Instagram. You can follow me at PieJirsa or on the SLR Lounge channel as well. See you guys in the next video. Peace.